Mercedes is leading the championship, but Toto Wolff just exposed the problem that could destroy it before Austria even begins. Not a slow car. Not a weak driver. Not even Ferrari's pace. Something far more dangerous. A Mercedes can be fast enough to win, strong enough to lead the title, and still be one electrical failure away from handing everything to Lewis Hamilton. George Russell already lost a race from the lead. Kimi Antonelli already lost huge points just 4 laps from the finish. And now Wolff is warning that Mercedes cannot fight for a championship if cars keep disappearing from races when the points matter most. But the worst part is not the failure itself. It is where Mercedes believes the problem is coming from, why the fix may not arrive all at once, and why Hamilton in a Ferrari is suddenly the last person Wolff wants smelling blood. Because Austria will not just test Mercedes' speed. It will test whether Mercedes can survive its own car. Subscribe to the channel. Mercedes should be walking into the Austrian Grand Prix like a team in control. That is what makes this story so dangerous. Because if you only look at the championship table, Mercedes still looks powerful. Kimi Antonelli is leading the Drivers' Championship. George Russell is still close enough to matter. The Constructors' lead is still in Mercedes' hands. And the car, when it works, has already shown the kind of speed that can break a season open. But Formula One has never rewarded the car that looks best on paper. It rewards the car that reaches the finish. And right now, that is the part Mercedes can no longer take for granted. That is why Toto Wolff's warning matters so much. He was not complaining about a bad setup. He was not trying to explain away one unlucky afternoon. He was pointing at a pattern, and patterns are what frighten teams at this level. One retirement can be bad luck. 2 major failures in a short stretch start to look like a weakness. And when those failures happen while the championship is tightening, they stop being technical details and become a threat to everything. Because this Mercedes problem is not happening at the back of the grid. It is happening while the team is fighting for wins, podiums, and championship control. That is what makes every lost point feel heavier. George Russell already felt the brutal version of it in Canada. He was leading the Grand Prix. Not chasing. Not recovering. Leading. He had the race in his hands, and then the power unit failed. In a championship fight, losing a race from the lead is not just painful. It is expensive. It hands points to rivals, changes the mood in the garage, and leaves the driver with a question no elite racer wants to carry. Can I trust this car when it matters most? Then Spain made the problem impossible to ignore. Kimi Antonelli was near the end of the race. The hard work was almost done. The finish was close. The points were there. And then, with only 4 laps remaining, the Mercedes suffered an electrical shutdown. 4 laps. That is the detail that makes it hurt. Because a failure at the start of a race is cruel, but at least the damage is immediate. A failure near the end is different. It lets the team believe. It lets the driver fight. It lets the championship picture almost settle. Then it takes everything away at the last moment. And while Antonelli stopped, Lewis Hamilton won. That is where the entire story changed. Because Mercedes did not just lose points in Spain. Mercedes gave Ferrari hope. And not just any Ferrari hope. Hamilton hope. The kind of hope Wolff understands better than almost anyone in the paddock. This is the uncomfortable truth Mercedes has to face before Austria. The car is still fast enough to win. But it is also fragile enough to make every rival believe the door is open. That combination is terrifying. A slow car gives you a clear problem. You know you need more speed. You chase upgrades. You change setups. You search for lap time. It is painful, but it is simple. A fast car that may not finish is much worse. Because it gives you confidence and fear at the same time. It puts you at the front, then makes you wonder whether the front is safe. It lets your drivers attack, then forces engineers to watch every temperature, every warning, every signal from the power unit, as if one small change could become the next disaster. And Austria will make that fear louder. The Red Bull ring is not a place where pressure disappears. It is short. It is sharp. The lap goes by quickly, which means gaps can look tiny and mistakes can become costly very fast. Traffic can hurt. Starts can decide everything. A bad opening lap can throw a driver into battles they never wanted. And for Mercedes, that matters because the team already has more than one problem to solve. Reliability is the headline. But starts have also been a concern. Wolff has already made it clear that losing positions off the line is unacceptable. And that might sound like a separate issue, but it connects directly to the bigger danger. A bad start can trap a Mercedes behind other cars. That means dirty air. More fighting. More stress. More heat. More decisions. And when a team is already worried about electrical reliability, the last thing it wants is a messy race full of extra pressure. Mercedes needs clean weekends now. Clean starts. Clean strategy. Clean temperature control. Clean teamwork between Antonelli and Russell. But the problem is, championships rarely give you clean weekends when rivals smell weakness. And Hamilton is now close enough to smell it. That is why Wolff's comments about him matter. When Wolff says Hamilton goes for it if he smells blood, that is not just a dramatic phrase. It is a warning from someone who has watched Hamilton destroy rivals for years when the smallest opportunity appears. Hamilton does not need Mercedes to collapse completely. He only needs them to hesitate. One more retirement. One more electrical warning. One more race where Russell and Antonelli take points from each other. One more weekend where Ferrari finishes cleanly while Mercedes explains what went wrong. That is how a strong lead becomes a nervous lead. And that is exactly why this Austrian Grand Prix feels bigger than one race. Because Mercedes is not arriving with a simple question like, are we fast enough? The question is darker than that. Can Mercedes survive being the fastest team when the most dangerous weakness is inside its own car? That is the part the championship table cannot show. It can show Antonelli's lead. It can show Russell's position. It can show Mercedes ahead in the constructors' standings. But it cannot show the tension inside the garage when engineers know that one hidden failure can erase a perfect weekend. It cannot show what a driver feels when the car has already failed him once. It cannot show what Antonelli feels after losing points so close to the finish. It cannot show what Russell thinks after losing a win that looked possible. And it cannot show what Wolff knows. Mercedes can still win this championship. But if the same pattern continues, Ferrari may not need to beat them on pure speed. Mercedes might do the damage itself. But the reliability crisis is only the surface. The deeper problem is where the failures are coming from. Because after Spain and Canada, Mercedes could not hide behind vague language anymore. This was not just an unlucky sensor. This was not just one strange race. This was not a driver mistake, a strategy gamble, or a small issue that disappeared once the car returned to the garage. James Allison pointed directly toward the same broad area. The battery. And that single word changes everything. Because in modern Formula One, the battery is not just something sitting quietly in the background. It is not like the battery in a television remote, waiting to help when needed. It is one of the most important parts of the entire power unit. It helps deliver the energy that makes the car launch, attack, defend, and keep pushing lap after lap. So when Mercedes says the problem is around the battery module, this is not a small warning light. It is the heart of the car's electrical power becoming a question mark. And here is where it gets more dangerous. The failures are not all identical, but they seem to come from the same broad part of the battery system. That means Mercedes is not looking at one simple broken piece that can be replaced and forgotten. They are looking at a risk area, a zone of weakness, a part of the car where different problems can appear, all pointing back to the same painful truth. Something inside the energy system is being pushed too hard, getting too hot, or failing under the kind of pressure a championship car has to survive. That sounds technical. But think of it like this. Imagine your phone works perfectly when you check messages, scroll for a few minutes, or take one photo. But then, every time you use navigation, video, brightness, and charging all at once, it starts heating up. At first, you ignore it. Then one day, it shuts down at the worst possible moment. That is not a random inconvenience anymore. That is a trust problem. And trust is exactly what Mercedes is now trying to rebuild. In Canada, Russell's race ended because of a battery failure that caused the engine to shut down. The painful detail is that he was leading. The car had already done the hard part. It was at the front, controlling the race, and then the battery suffered a catastrophic failure. Catastrophic. That word matters. It does not sound like something Mercedes can casually brush aside. It sounds like damage. Heat. Stress. A failure deep enough to stop a race-winning car before it could collect the points. Then in Spain, Antonelli's shutdown arrived almost at the end. Different race. Different driver. Different moment. But the same kind of fear returned. Electrical failure. Lost points. Championship damage. And suddenly, the pattern became impossible to dismiss. This is where Toto Wolff's frustration makes more sense. Because he is not just angry that points were lost. He is angry because Mercedes may have had the pace to control this championship, and yet the car itself is making that control unstable. There is nothing more frustrating for a top team than losing points it had already earned on the road. If a rival beats you, you study them. If your strategy fails, you review the calls. If the driver makes a mistake, you handle it internally. But when the car stops from inside, the whole team is forced into a different kind of fear. Because nobody can race around a failure that has not been fully eliminated. And that brings us to the phrase that should worry Mercedes before Austria. New modules are being phased in. On the surface, that sounds positive. It means Mercedes is working. It means the team understands enough of the risk to begin changing parts. It means the engineers are not helpless. But it also means this is not a clean reset. If the solution were complete, the language would feel different. It would sound final. Fixed. Solved. Controlled. Instead, it sounds gradual. A process. A transition. A race against time. And in Formula 1, gradual fixes are dangerous when the championship is moving quickly. Because the Austrian Grand Prix does not wait for a perfect solution. Ferrari does not wait. Hamilton does not wait. The points do not wait. Every weekend that Mercedes spends phasing in the answer is a weekend where the weakness might still be alive. That is the uncomfortable part. Mercedes may know where the fire started. But that does not automatically mean the building is safe. And the reason this problem is so hard is because the current generation of power units asks far more from the electrical side than before. The battery is not just supporting the engine. It is carrying a much bigger share of the performance. The car depends on that stored energy again and again, not as a luxury, but as part of how it races. More electrical power means more stress. More stress means more heat. More heat means more risk. And if that heat is not managed perfectly, the battery can become the hidden enemy inside the car. That is why this is not just an engineering issue. It is a racing issue. If Mercedes tells the drivers to protect the car, they may lose attack power against Ferrari. If they push too hard, they risk another failure. If they add more cooling, they may lose speed on the straights. If they chase more speed, they may increase the stress that caused the problem in the first place. Every option has a cost. And that is what makes Austria so tense. The Red Bull ring rewards commitment. It rewards traction, power, braking, and confidence. Drivers have to attack the lap. They cannot drive like they are afraid of the machine underneath them. But how does Antonelli attack with total freedom after what happened in Spain? How does Russell attack without remembering Canada? How does Wolff ask both drivers to fight Ferrari, while also knowing the car has already taken points away from both sides of the garage? That is the invisible battle. Not Mercedes versus Ferrari. Not Antonelli versus Hamilton. Not Russell versus his own teammate. Mercedes versus doubt. And doubt spreads fast inside a championship fight. It starts in the engineering room. Then it reaches the strategy wall. Then it reaches the drivers. Then it reaches the rivals. And once rivals believe you are vulnerable, they stop waiting for miracles. They start applying pressure in every small place. A harder undercut. A longer first stint. A more aggressive attack at turn 1. A radio message that forces Mercedes to choose between protecting the car and defending track position. That is how a technical weakness becomes a competitive weapon for everyone else. And Hamilton is the most dangerous person to hand that weapon to. Because he knows Mercedes culture. He knows how they think when pressure rises. He knows how calm they look on the outside when something is not perfect inside. And Wolff knows Hamilton's instincts just as well. That is why the battery issue is not just bad news. It is the opening Ferrari needed. Before Spain, Hamilton was chasing a Mercedes machine that looked dominant. After Spain, he is chasing a Mercedes machine that looks fast, but exposed. There is a huge difference. A dominant rival makes you feel like you need something extraordinary. An exposed rival makes you feel like you only need to be ready. And Hamilton is always ready when a title fight starts to turn emotional. But there is one more layer that makes this even more dangerous for Mercedes. This problem may not only affect the two works cars. Mercedes supplies power units to other teams, which means the same area of concern could matter across more than one garage. Allison's wording about the team's fortunes as a fleet hinted at a wider picture, not just a single isolated failure. That matters politically. Because when a power unit supplier has a weakness, the pressure does not only come from rivals. It can come from customers, from partners, from drivers who need confidence, from teams whose own results depend on the same technology surviving race distance. Reliability is not private for long in Formula 1. Sooner or later, every pattern becomes public. And once a pattern is public, every failure becomes part of a bigger story. That is where Mercedes stands before Austria. They are not just trying to win a Grand Prix. They are trying to stop a narrative. They need to stop the idea that the car is fragile. They need to stop the belief that Hamilton can wait for them to break. They need to stop the fear that Antonelli's championship lead is built on machinery that may not protect him when the season gets tighter. Because once that belief takes hold, the championship changes before the points even do. The drivers feel it. The engineers feel it. The rivals feel it. And the audience feels it too. Every lap becomes loaded with tension. Every Mercedes radio message sounds more important. Every small loss of power, every slow exit, every unusual instruction, every moment of silence from the cockpit, suddenly feels like it could be the start of another disaster. That is what Wolff is trying to prevent. But he cannot fix it with words. Austria will demand proof. Not promises. Not explanations. Not confidence in a press conference. Proof. Both cars finishing. Strong points. No electrical drama. No late race heartbreak. No battery warning turning into another headline. Because if Mercedes leaves Austria clean, the team can breathe. But if Austria delivers another failure, then the championship fight changes completely. At that point, the question will no longer be whether Mercedes is fast enough. The question will be whether Mercedes has already given Hamilton the one thing he needed most: belief.